Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin today with a thought that changed my life many years ago. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you become. And once I understood that simple truth, everything started to look different. Because most people think attraction starts on the outside, fix the hair, fix the face, fix the clothes. But let me tell you something important. Real attraction begins long before anyone sees you. It begins inside. It begins with character. It begins with discipline. It begins with the tiny little habits that shape the way you walk into a room, the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you carry yourself when nobody's applauding. See, we've confused charm with character, style with substance, and appearance with presence. But presence, my friend, doesn't come from your genetics. It comes from your habits. And that's good news. Because it means you don't have to be the best looking person in the room to be the most attractive one. Jim Rohn taught me many years ago that success is something you attract by the person you become. Well, attraction works the same way. You polish the inside, and soon the outside starts to shine in a way no mirror can measure. Today, I want to share with you 5 tiny habits, small, simple, almost invisible, that can transform how people see you. And here's the magic. These habits don't require money or height or perfect genetics. They require intention, consistency, a little discipline, and the willingness to say, if attraction begins within, let me start there. Because the truth is, people are drawn not to faces, but to energy. Not to clothing, but to clarity. Not to perfection, but to a person who's clearly becoming someone of value. So let's begin our journey. 5 habits, tiny habits, but each one packed with enough power to shift your confidence, your relationships, your opportunities, and the way the world responds to you. Remember this. Your future isn't impressed by your appearance. Your future is impressed by your habits. And once you upgrade the habits, the rest, well, it starts falling into place. Now, let's move to the first habit. A simple one, a powerful one, and perhaps the most important of them all. Now, let's talk about the first habit. One that sits at the very core of confidence, charisma, and every form of attraction. Keeping the promises you make to yourself. Not the promises you make to the world. Not the promises you make to your friends. I'm talking about those small private promises you make when no one's watching. Because that, my friend, is where attraction truly begins. Let me give you a principle that changed the way I lived. Your self-respect is built in the quiet moments of discipline. And when your self-respect grows, everything about you changes: your posture, your voice, your presence, even the way you shake a hand. You see, confidence is not something you put on like a jacket. Confidence is something you build by doing what you said you would do. Most people never understand this. They think confidence comes from encouragement, applause, or achievement. But confidence is much simpler. It comes from keeping your word to yourself. You say you'll wake up early, but then you negotiate with the pillow. You say you'll read tonight, but then you bargain with comfort. You say you'll eat better, save more, work harder, learn a skill, and then you let yourself off the hook. And every time you break your own promise, a little piece of your belief in yourself fades, not enough to notice at first, but enough to weaken the foundation. Here's the tragedy. Every broken promise creates a crack in your confidence. And people can feel that. They can hear it in your voice. They can see it in your eyes. Attraction fades when self-respect fades. But here's the good news. The opposite is also true. Keep one promise to yourself, just one, and watch what happens. You stand taller. You speak clearer. You walk into a room with quiet assurance. Because when you trust yourself, the world begins to trust you too. That's the law. And Jim Rohn was a master at teaching this law. The greatest form of discipline is doing what you said you were going to do. So let me give you a small assignment. Something simple. Something you can do today. Choose 3 small promises. Tiny ones. And make absolutely sure you keep them. Not 10 promises. Not a grand plan. Just 3. 3 things that say to your mind, I can count on you. Because the moment your mind believes that, your confidence rises. And when confidence rises, attraction rises with it. Remember, this habit isn't about appearance. It's about alignment. The outer world senses the inner world, and the inner world shines brightest when your actions match your intentions. Now that we've built the foundation of self-respect, let's move to the next habit, one that almost instantly elevates your presence in any room. The second habit is one of the rarest, yet one of the most powerful. Learn to listen deeply, not casually, not impatiently, not waiting for your turn to talk. I mean listening with the intention to understand, listening with presence, listening as if the person speaking carries a treasure in their words and your job is to find it. Let me tell you something astonishing. In all my years of teaching, I discovered that most people don't listen. They wait for a chance to jump in, to argue, to prove, to correct, to impress, but they don't truly listen. And here's the secret. Deep listening is instantly attractive. People are not used to it. People are starving for it. And the moment someone feels truly heard, they gravitate towards you almost naturally. Jim Rohn used to say, take a sincere interest in other people. Not a half interest, not a curious interest, a sincere one. Because sincerity shows, and insincerity shows even louder. When you listen deeply, you communicate something powerful. Your words matter, your thoughts matter, you matter. That, my friend, is magnetic. You don't need a new haircut for that. You don't need expensive clothing. You don't need a perfect smile. Just attention, presence, a mind that isn't wandering, eyes that aren't scanning the room, a heart that isn't rushing to be right. Let me tell you what listening does. It builds trust. It disarms defensiveness. It strengthens connection. It makes you unforgettable. And here's the real magic. When you listen deeply, you learn, you grow, you gain insight, you catch the details that others miss. And a person who learns from every conversation becomes wiser every week, richer every year. Practice this habit today. In your next conversation, try something unusual. Pause. Don't respond immediately. Just let the other person finish. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't rush to prove your point. Let them speak. Let them be. Then ask one simple question. Tell me more about that. You'd be amazed how quickly your presence rises in someone's heart when you invite them to go deeper. Remember, the greatest communicators are not the ones who talk well. They are the ones who listen well. And attraction grows wherever understanding grows. Now, once you've developed the discipline of listening, something wonderful happens. You begin to upgrade the very words that come out of your mouth. And that, my friend, leads us to the next habit. Now let's move to the third habit, one that can raise or lower your attractiveness faster than almost anything else. It's this. Learn to speak in principles, not gossip. Raise the level of your conversation. Lift the standard of your words. Because let me tell you, nothing reveals the depth of a person faster than the subjects they choose to speak about. Jim Rohn used to say, don't spend major time on minor things. Well, gossip is the most minor of all minor things. It drains your energy, it cheapens your character, and it signals to the world that your mind is wandering in the wrong places. But when you speak in principles, when you talk about ideas, lessons, values, growth, people immediately sense a different kind of presence, a higher quality of thinking, a more refined kind of mind. Let me give you a simple contrast. Small minds talk about people. Average minds talk about events. Great minds talk about ideas. And attractive minds, the kind that draw others in, talk about principles, purpose, possibility. They lift the room, not lower it. You see, your words are like a business card. They introduce your thinking before you ever explain who you are. If your conversations are filled with negativity, criticism, gossip, or judgment, then that's what people associate with you. But if your conversations are filled with insight, reflection, wisdom, and curiosity, people remember you for it. They lean in. They want more. Now, speaking in principles doesn't mean you lecture people. It simply means you anchor your conversations in value. Instead of gossip, ask, what's the lesson? What's the opportunity? What can we learn from this? That's how a person with depth speaks. A person who is becoming someone. A person whose presence enriches the environment. Here's a small daily practice. Carry a notebook. Write down one valuable idea every day. Then weave that idea into your conversations throughout the week, not to impress anyone, but to elevate your thinking. Because the more you talk about valuable things, the more valuable you become. And people can't help but feel drawn to value. Remember, your appearance might catch someone's eye, but your words, your principles, catch their admiration. And admiration is far more attractive than appearance. Now, once your words begin to reflect wisdom, something else becomes visible, your commitment to growth. And when growth becomes visible, attraction rises even higher. That leads us to habit number 4. Now let's move to the 4th habit, one that separates the average from the exceptional almost instantly. Carry signs of growth with you. Let the evidence of your personal development be visible, not to show off, not to impress, but to remind yourself and the world that you are a person committed to becoming more. Jim Rohn used to say, your library says more about you than your wardrobe ever will, and I believe that, because a book in your hand is more than paper and ink. It is a signal. It says you are learning. You're stretching your mind. You're not content with yesterday's version of yourself. Let me tell you something powerful. People can tell when you're growing, and they can tell when you're not. Your curiosity radiates. Your energy changes. Your eyes carry a certain spark because the mind behind them is alive. One of the simplest ways to become more attractive is to feed your mind every day. 10 pages of a good book. One new insight. One fresh idea. One note written down. And don't underestimate the power of that little notebook. Jim Rohn always emphasized writing things down. He said, don't trust your memory. Your memory lies. Ink it. And when you carry that notebook, something interesting happens. You begin to think at a higher altitude. You start asking better questions. You notice things others miss. And here's the miracle. People feel the difference. Someone sees you reading, a silent message goes out. There's depth here. Someone sees you taking notes, another message. This person doesn't leave their growth to chance. Someone hears you share something you learned. This person has something valuable to offer. Let me give you a small routine to adopt. Every day, highlight one sentence from whatever you're reading, write it in your notebook, carry it with you, reflect on it, let it guide you. Do that for 30 days and watch how your conversations change. Watch how your decisions change. Watch how your presence changes. People become attracted to your direction, not just your personality, to your growth, not just your charm, because growth is magnetic. It signals ambition. It signals possibility. It signals a future worth walking toward. And when you start living like someone who's going somewhere, the world begins to follow you sometimes without you even trying. Now that you've begun building this quiet depth, let's move to the final habit, one that brings everything together the moment you step into the world. Now let's discuss the 5th habit, one that speaks before you ever open your mouth. Dress with intention, not ego. Let your appearance reflect your standards, not your insecurities. Because whether we like it or not, people read you long before they hear you. And your appearance is the first chapter of the story you're telling the world. Jim Rohn used to put it in simple terms. He said, take care of your appearance, not for vanity, just to show that you respect yourself. And that's the principle. Not fashion, not trends, respect. The goal isn't to look impressive. The goal is to look intentional, clean, neat, coordinated, and consistent with the person you're becoming. You see, ego tries to be noticed. Intention tries to be clear. Ego dresses to attract approval. Intention dresses to reflect identity. And identity, real, disciplined, centered identity, is incredibly attractive. Let me tell you a little secret. People don't judge your clothes. They judge the message your clothes sent. A sloppy appearance doesn't say, I'm relaxed. It says, I didn't care enough today. A chaotic style doesn't say, I'm creative. It says, I haven't decided who I am yet. But a well-presented appearance, simple, clean, intentional, says, I'm a person of order. I'm a person of clarity. I'm a person who respects himself and therefore respects the people he meets. That message is magnetic. And you don't need expensive clothes to send it. You simply need discipline. a small routine, a few solid basics, a commitment to hygiene, grooming, and care. When you consistently maintain your appearance, you build a subtle but powerful habit, showing up ready. And here's what I learned. You can't always control your circumstances, but you can always control how you show up to them. For some of you, just upgrading one small part of your appearance, your shoes, your posture, your grooming, your daily routine, could change the way people respond to you. Not because the item is impressive, but because the discipline behind it is. So remember this. Your clothing doesn't make you attractive. Your care makes you attractive. Your attention makes you attractive. Your intention makes you attractive. You dress not to pretend, you dress to confirm. You dress to tell the truth about who you are becoming. And when you combine this outer intention with inner discipline, with deep listening, with principled speech, and with visible personal growth, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to feel different. And when you feel different, you appear different. That's the power of these tiny habits. Now that we've covered the 5 habits, it's time to take a step back and talk about something even more powerful, the way these habits work together, compounding over time, transforming not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. Now that we've walked through the 5 tiny habits, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Because each habit alone is powerful, but when you combine them, something extraordinary begins to happen. Attraction starts to compound. It doesn't grow in a straight line. It multiplies. And Jim Rohn taught us this principle over and over again. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. But if you do it consistently, the results are astonishing. Think about it. When you keep your promises to yourself, you build self-respect. When you listen deeply, you build connection. When you speak in principles, you build admiration. When you carry signs of growth, you build credibility. When you dress with intention, you build presence. Now imagine all 5 working together, day after day, week after week. Your confidence rises just a little. Your conversations improve just a little. Your energy sharpens just a little. Your appearance aligns just a little. But here's the miracle of discipline. A little repeated consistently becomes a lot. Not overnight, but inevitably. You see, the average person keeps waiting for a dramatic transformation, one big moment, one major breakthrough, one lucky event. But life doesn't work like that. Life rewards the small, simple disciplines repeated daily. And attraction works exactly the same way. It's not one habit that changes your life. It's the compound effect of many small habits working together. Somebody sees you today and thinks, you look good, but they can't explain why. Somebody hears you speak and thinks there's something different about you, but they can't quite put their finger on it. Somebody observes your presence and feels drawn to you, but they don't know the source. The secret is that the source isn't one big thing. It's 5 small things practiced consistently. This is why I call them tiny habits with enormous return. You build them quietly. You practice them privately. You repeat them faithfully. And one day, seemingly out of nowhere, you become magnetic. Not by chance, but by choice. Not by luck, but by discipline. Jim Rohn said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Well, attraction is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. You handle your habits, and your habits handle your results. So let me encourage you. Don't underestimate the small improvements. Don't overlook the little victories. Don't dismiss those moments when you kept a promise, listened fully, elevated your words, fed your mind, or showed up with intention. Those are the bricks, and every day you lay another one, your identity rises, your presence rises, your attractiveness rises, quietly, steadily, powerfully. Now that we understand the compound effect, let's take this even deeper. Let's talk about the mindset behind all of this, the inner philosophy that makes these habits last. Now let's go deeper. Because habits are powerful, yes, but habits grow out of something even more powerful, your mindset, the way you see yourself, the philosophy you live by, the beliefs you carry into each new day. Jim Rohn always said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And that, my friend, is the foundation of an attractive mindset. See, attraction is not about pretending. It's not about performing. It's not about convincing anyone of anything. True attraction is the natural result of becoming someone of value, someone disciplined, someone thoughtful, someone who takes responsibility for their direction and their destiny. People feel it, they sense it, they are drawn to it, not because you're perfect, but because you're growing. Let me give you a simple truth. You cannot outperform your self-image. If you see yourself as average, your habits will be average. If you see yourself as unworthy, your energy will reflect it. If you see yourself as someone who's behind in life, everything you do will carry a tone of desperation. But if you see yourself as someone becoming more each day, someone working on themselves, improving their character, sharpening their mind, your entire presence changes. You walk differently. You think differently. You carry a quiet confidence that the world can recognize immediately. Remember, attraction is the byproduct of identity. The world simply responds to the person you believe yourself to be. So the real question is, who are you becoming? Not who were you last year. Not what mistakes you made last week. Not what someone else thinks you should be. Who are you becoming? Jim Rohn taught that life gets better when you get better. Relationships get better when you get better. Opportunities get better when you get better. And yes, attraction gets stronger when you get better, because people don't follow looks. They don't follow charm. They follow growth. They follow purpose. They follow a person who is clearly going somewhere. Let me give you a phrase to carry with you. Every day, in every small habit, I'm becoming someone worth knowing. That's the mindset. That's the identity. That's the internal shift that makes the external changes inevitable. Once you adopt this mindset, everything else falls into place. The 5 habits become natural. The discipline becomes easier. The confidence becomes organic. You stop trying to attract and you start allowing. Because once you upgrade your identity, your presence upgrades all by itself. Now, with the mindset in place, it's time for the final piece, your concluding philosophy, your daily reminder, your call to action, the challenge that seals everything we've learned into a way of life, not just an idea. Now, my friend, as we bring this message to a close, let me leave you with a challenge, simple, profound, and worthy of your future. Become someone attractive to your own destiny. Because at the end of the day, the greatest person you must impress is not the world out there, it's the person you're becoming in here. Jim Rohn used to say, success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. The same is true for relationships, opportunities, friendships, business, wealth, respect, and yes, even personal attraction. It doesn't begin with the mirror. It begins with the mind. It begins with the heart. It begins with those tiny daily habits we talked about. So let's review them once again, not just as reminders, but as invitations. Keep your promises to yourself. Build the kind of self-respect that creates natural confidence. Listen deeply. Give people the rare gift of your full presence. Speak in principles, not gossip. Elevate your words and your words will elevate you. Carry signs of growth. Let your learning be visible. Let your curiosity be alive. Dress with intention. Show up in a way that reflects the standards you hold inside. These aren't fashion tips. They aren't gimmicks. They're disciplines, they're philosophies, they're habits that reshape you from the inside out. And when you practice them consistently, the world begins to respond quietly at first, then noticeably, then unmistakably. But remember, none of this works without consistency. None of it works without commitment. And none of it works if you only try it for a day or two. You must live these habits. You must practice them. You must adopt them as part of who you are becoming. So here's the challenge. For the next 30 days, choose these habits, live them intentionally, keep track, reflect. Notice how your confidence rises. Notice how your conversations improve. Notice how your opportunities expand. Notice, especially, how the quality of people entering your life starts to change. Not because the world suddenly shifted, but because you did. Your future's waiting for a stronger version of you, a wiser version, a more disciplined version, a more intentional version. And when you build that version, when you become that version, everything you've been hoping for begins to move your way. So tonight, before you sleep, make a decision. Not a wish, a decision. A decision to live with discipline. A decision to grow daily. A decision to refine your habits and elevate your presence. Because greatness, my friend, is not an event, it's a habit. And if you choose those habits, if you practice them faithfully, one day the world will look at your life and call it luck. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was daily discipline. It was tiny habits. It was the steady commitment to becoming someone worth following, someone worth listening to, someone worth remembering. So go out and live it. Become the person your future is waiting for. Because when you become attractive to yourself, you become attractive to the world.